Hello everyone, you're watching Gaming Angel Gabriel. My name is Gabe Gurwin. I'm joined today by Dean Thompson, and this is what we saw. So jumping right in, this is going to be kind of like a news show. It's kind of an aggregate. We find news articles about gaming from different sources and kind of compile them, give our 2 cents. If you're interested, every single one of these articles that we have, the link is going to be in the bottom in the description. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, I'll introduce myself real quick. My name's Gabe Gurwin, and I'm joined by Dean.
I'm Dean Thompson, avid gamer from the old days.
Yeah, you might recognize me from CG Undertow, which I was on, but I'm in college now. Right now I'm actually back at home, but I usually am. So the first story we're going to jump into is Resident Evil 6. Now this has been kind of, one of the first main games I think coming out this holiday season. I know there's a ton of stuff. I think the first real game people kind of, as the fall season started, was Borderlands 2, which got, incredible reviews as a sequel to a game that was initially kind of under the radar. But Resident Evil 6 is one of the biggest franchises that's been around for a very long time, and the sequel has not gotten very positive reviews, to say the least. It's gotten some, I guess, more polarized reception than anything else. The aggregate score on Metacritic right now is a 66 for the 360 version. It's like a 77 for the PS3 version. But this is a series that, for every game, pretty much, with a few exceptions like Raccoon City or spin-offs like that, was getting at least a 9, sometimes an 8.5 from most sites. But we're gonna take a look now. I have some of these pulled up of quotes from some reviewers about this game. So the first one I have is Destructoid. I don't know if this was Jim Sterling or not that did this. Yes, it was. Okay, it was Jim Sterling, and this is at the very end. This kind of sums up what I think a lot of people have been thinking. It's bad enough that the game, at its very best, is so pedestrian, but to screw up in areas that even third-rate shooters manage to get right is something Capcom should find degrading. It's not enough to say that Resident Evil 6 is poor as a Resident Evil game. That alone implies that there could be a quality experience if fans can get past their preconceptions and feelings of betrayal. No, Resident Evil 6 is poor by the standards of any game, not just the high ones set by its own legacy. This is exceptional tripe that becomes insulting once the woeful missteps come into play. Resident Evil 6 is not just a step back for the series, it's a step back for commonplace, unassuming action shooters. I know Jim Sterling gets pretty into his reviews about ripping stuff apart that he doesn't like, but I read that and I could not find any hint of positivity in that. The final score they gave it was a 3 out of 10.
Oh, jeez.
GameSpot, likewise, they were a little bit kinder. They gave it a 4.5 out of 10, but they said a very similar thing. Kind of, but how far can cinematics get you with But how far can cinematics get you when the gameplay sandwiched between them is so poorly paced, so utterly misconceived, so reliant on stick wriggles and button tapping? And obviously, these are 2 negative reviews, and some of them have been kinder. I know Game Informer gave it like an 8.75 out of 10. But the last game, Resident Evil 5, which a lot of fans were angry about because, frankly, I liked it, but it was not scary. This seems to be kind of scary, I think. No pun intended, for Capcom. They've had 3 Resident Evil 6 games released this year alone, and usually in video games, quantity is not better than quality. They had first for the 3DS in, I think, February, was Resident Evil Revelations, which is awesome. That game is incredible. It's paced perfectly. There's flashback sequences. The action works really well, and it's pretty scary. It's not super scary, but it's pretty scary. Operation Raccoon City has kind of been torn apart by everyone for being a piece of crap that had the license kind of slapped onto it. But Resident Evil 6, when I first saw the trailer, I was really, really excited because I thought it was going to be good. The first trailer for the game showed this return to the darkness, all of these different characters that we kind of knew from the series before. But what we got, it seems, I guess it's still indicative of the trailer because the setting's the same, but the gameplay seems to be kind of having an identity crisis. I don't know if you've seen any of the reviews yourself, Dean, or not.
Yes, I certainly have.
Yeah.
It's all over the map. I have 2 people I know that are enthralled with it, that think it should be a Game of the Year contender, if you can believe that. Now, there's one YouTuber, Phil, over at DSP Gaming. He played the whole campaign all the way through in co-op, and he gave it a 9 in co-op. But he said his girlfriend, who also has a YouTube channel doing a playthrough in single player, it has all kinds of bugs with the AI. Problems if you shift characters mid-story, you'll lose your ammo and weapons. Horrible game bugs and glitches. So in that respect, even though he likes the game, he says I'd have to give the single player, based on that, a 7 or a 7.5. So even the people that like it are wrestling with what kind of a basic review to give it. The camera controls are an issue for a lot of people, including the fans, as well as the gameplay. I have one friend of mine who has played all of them and said he actually had to put it on easy to make sense of it. There's another person I found on the internet that says the story doesn't make any sense unless you go on and there's a hierarchy criteria of what chapters to play with what character. If you play them in this order, then it makes sense. It's very convoluted, but it seems like there's no recipe book, there's no manual that goes with it, nothing that just kind of dumps you in the middle of this huge game, and it seems like it's a hot mess.
That's what I got from it too. I saw when I was reading an interview or watching an interview, one of the developers said, you can pick to start any of these stories in any order you want, and then eventually it'll all come together. And I was thinking, well, how can any of these stories have anything to do with each other if you're able to pick each? Now, I have not played the game personally yet. I haven't gotten a chance to, but this is kind of what I've heard from people who have. Another complaint I've seen, you mentioned the camera, is that it's far too zoomed in. That's one thing I've seen. And I've actually... the Resident Evil 5 AI was not very good. I played through the game on single player. Sheva annoyed me a fair amount. It wasn't game-breaking. I've heard that the Resident Evil 6 AI, they have fixed some things, but just from footage I've seen of the game, it looks at sometimes like, it's starting to kind of figure out what it wants to be. I know the Chris campaign is the one that a lot of people think went too much down the action shootery, Gears of War kind of style.
Yes.
But at the same time, I saw that, and it was C-Nanners playing it with Hutch, and they seemed to actually be having a good time. They were playing it co-op, but they seemed to be having a good time. And then it got really chaotic, and not in a good way. Like, the camera was zooming in way too much. There was clipping. People didn't know where they were. The game, I think, also was made by a few different developers. Different development teams, at least, each one. And I think that's kind of clear. You see the Leon campaign, it's obvious what they were going for with that. They were trying to kind of please the fans of the first couple.
Yes.
And I think that kind of... I wouldn't say that's a mistake, but what they wanted to do, they kind of took a bunch of ingredients and didn't know how to cook it. The Leon campaign, they wanted to make it scary, but I guess they just don't know how to do scary anymore. It's dark, there aren't that many enemies for the most of the time, you're not doing a lot of shooting. But everything I've seen so far from it, the Leon campaign looked boring. It looked like a bunch of QuickTime events with some little cutscenes thrown in, and just kind of wanted to say, look at me, I'm scary, when, it really wasn't.
Yes, lots of QuickTime events running, I guess, towards the camera, which seems very odd to me, but, but that shows the epic set pieces of the monsters chasing you. So I have my own issues with it, to where it would turn me off as a gamer based on some of the dynamics that I have seen. Now, what I have heard in the game's defense as far as the story, if you play all 3 of the characters and missions, you unlock the Ada missions, you play her missions, and then it makes sense.
Yeah.
She ties in all the little pieces, and if you're willing to sit through the thing and suffer through it, for some people they might have to suffer, I guess. For the 2 people that like it, that I know, they seem to enjoy it. So even though they do validate some of the issues with the game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I know there's Resident Evil, more than pretty much anything else, there's like two camps, I think. The pre-Resident Evil 4 players and the post-Resident Evil 4 players. I guess I kind of fell into the post just because, Resident Evil 3 was, I think, early 2000s. And Resident Evil 4 came out in 2005. At that point, or 2004. At that point, I was 10 years old. I wasn't playing that game, but when Resident Evil 5 came out, I kind of jumped on board, and I realized I watched reviews of it before I got it, and I saw people saying, "Oh, it's not scary." No, it isn't really scary, but the game was still fun. But what I've seen pretty much from Resident Evil 6 is that they try to make it scarier. They try to add in these action shooter segments, and in doing so, they succeed at neither of them.
Unfortunately, that seems to be the case from what I've seen. Now, I did watch Giant Bomb did a very interesting, Jeff Gerfsman and Brad on there did do well over 30 minutes of playthrough, and I got to watch a little bit of it. He kind of jumped around. He did this character. He jumped into that. He showed, and in all fairness, they showed some of the elements they liked. They said the graphics were fairly nice. They obviously put a lot of time and energy into creating something that looks very stylish, and with the epic action set pieces and all that. But they went out of the way that these are people that have spent over 20 hours playing the game, and they just had a hard time. And they loved the Resident Evil series. They were big fans of the franchise, were very disappointed with the direction that it was going, the clunky controls. They didn't like the heavy-handed, all of the quick-time events. I'm not a big fan of them either. They put that Need for Speed the Run, also at quick-time events. Mm-hmm. Very unusual. It seems to be a new trend now. I'm not a big fan of it, but I understand those that like it.
Yeah, I think what it is, like Resident Evil 4 had them. I was playing it, there's a kid on my floor at school. He actually had the Japanese version of it, and I was playing through it. But the quick-time events in that game, the quick, that word actually has a meaning in them because you don't see them coming, and it's kind of like, because you can't react and stick your arm up to stop something, their substitute for that is to have you push a button really fast. And in Resident Evil 4, it worked because there'd be something jumping out, and you'd have to really quickly press that a zillion times to avoid it. But what a lot of it is, it looks like from what I've seen from the walkthroughs and gameplay I've seen of Resident Evil 6, it's let's open up a door together, partner, over and over and over again. And that's not fun for anyone. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what Capcom was thinking with this one. They've been very weird. Of course, they're turning people off by having the pre-order bonuses, which it's obvious they took something out of the game. This game originally was scheduled to be released, I think, mid to late November, and they pushed it up to October 2nd. To say that was a map they worked on after they could have had the game finished, and they had to put it out as DLC it's baloney. The game, they obviously took it out to give to people as a pre-order incentive. Capcom's kind of known for the day one DLC. I know Dragon's Dogma, a lot of people really liked that game. There were technical flaws was the main problem I've seen with that, but apparently it's going to be turned into a series. But it had day one DLC, and it wasn't just like something hid behind. It was the first thing you see when you turn that game on is, hey, look what you can download that you don't have, even though you just paid $60.
I know. I hear you with the DLC.
It's ridiculous, and I don't want to totally crap on Capcom because, like I said, Revelations, which came out earlier this year for the 3DS, is fantastic, and it did it right. It had enough shooting, but it also had exploration and puzzle solving. It was scary. The pace was perfect. It was focused. There were only a few different kind of stories. There was the Chris story, which was kind of I think you're searching for Chris. It's been a while since I played the game, but you're playing as Jill. And then there's the part where you're playing as Chris, which takes place beforehand. There's a part where you're playing as Jill, and then she has little flashbacks to stuff that like led up to how you got on this boat. And it's all paced perfectly. But what it seems like they did for Resident Evil 6 was just, okay, people like Chris that played Resident Evil 5. Everyone likes Leon. Wesker, he's not in the game anymore. We'll have his son. And Ada, I guess, and we'll put them all together. And it's kind of like they realized fans like this, and fans like this, but they didn't think enough about, okay, how do we actually make this work? We just need to have all this stuff.
Yes, it certainly seems that that's exactly the case. And it's not the first game that's obviously done this. It's a cash cow for Capcom. And they have a huge fan base. Now, I had played on the PS1 the day it came out. I played the first Resident Evil and loved it. And I loved the second one. And I never went beyond that. I think I just had other games I was playing at the time and kind of lost interest. I had an issue with it. You'd go walk down a hall, find a closet. There's an ammo clip that has 2 bullets in it. That kind of turned me off from the game, the real low ammo deal. I know they're kind of forcing you to use a melee system. I'm not a big fan of that. But it was a real survival horror. But now the cat's out of the bag. This virus is worldwide. It's everywhere. So now it almost has to go into this 28 days later epic set piece. The whole world's infected. It's out of control. Monsters everywhere. To me personally, it's a little too over the top. But I know there's people that like that. I don't want to take anything away from that for those that do.
Right, but there's a way to do it right.
Yes.
And there really is. When that control scheme switched in Resident Evil 4, I know a lot of people go back and say, why don't you make a game like Resident Evil 2? Well, if you go back and play one of those games, the first thing you're going to notice is the controls are kind of clunky. And that was the one thing I think, it was a positive for Resident Evil 4 was when they switched the control scheme. It made it a little bit easier. But you don't have to switch the control scheme and switch the entire game. Even with this kind of huge spread of the virus and the city, and how there's all these kind of pseudo zombies instead of the traditional brains kind of zombies, they could have mixed in more scares instead of having the explosions and the helicopters and stuff we come to expect from, like a Call of Duty or something, where it makes a little more sense or feels a little more at home, I guess. I don't know. And as far as the ammo things go, Resident Evil 5, the first time I played it, I was fighting Wesker at the end. I killed him by hitting him with a knife for 30 minutes because I was completely out of ammo. Yeah. And that was not a game that was very short on ammo either. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, I think we've kind of beat a dead horse as much as we're going to with this. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is Cliff Bleszinski leaving Epic Games as well as some other developers. And again, if you're looking to see the original source, you can find them all in the description. This is the departing developers of 2012 from the Game Informer website. They have a list here. Rod Ferguson leaves Epic in August 9th. He worked on Gears of War. He actually left, I guess, to go to Irrational Games to work on the BioShock Infinite team, which is, that's a game we haven't heard about in a while that was kind of pegged as the clear winner from E3 last year. Another guy, Adrian Chamorro, if you saw his name, you'd understand why it's so hard to pronounce. Camille Lars, he left Epic Games. He was with People Can Fly, who worked on Bulletstorm and are working on Gears of War Judgment, which I kind of thought about. That game's coming out like a year and a half after Gears of War 3, so very short timetable between releases. I'm sure they've been working on it longer than that. And then the big one before Cliff Bleszinski was a couple weeks ago. The two co-founders of BioWare, Ray Muzica and Greg Zeshuk, they both left. And they said, they didn't at first kind of say why, they just said, like, next chapter in our career is what we're starting. But eventually, they kind of let the cat out of the bag. That a big reason for it was the negative feedback they got from people on Mass Effect 3.
Yes, that's what I heard too.
Yeah, and I feel... I played Mass Effect 3 from start to finish, pretty much straight through. It took me about 30 hours. I got to the ending, and I had no problem with it. And I knew about the ending beforehand, so I was kind of, bracing myself. How bad is this going to be? It wasn't that bad. People... I don't know if it's a generational thing or if it's with the anonymity of the internet, but I'm not going to go into to everything about Mass Effect 3's ending.
I think.
I guess so, but it wasn't that bad. It had closure. It wasn't necessarily the happy ending you wanted. I know a lot of people were complaining that there were loose ends that didn't get tied up, but I guess it was kind of like some of these. People wanted this to be like the vehicle, and at the end, everyone gets out and everyone's happy. I think they have to understand that it's not just like that. A lot of these characters in the game were pieces, just trying kind of moving the story forward. Not all of them, but and then the extended cut came out over the summer, and they ruined my favorite part with the extended cut from the original ending. In the original, the Normandy ship crashes on a foreign planet. You don't know what it is. It's obviously not Earth. The people get out, and then that's the last thing you see. In the extended cut, they show... Oh, by the way, spoiler warning. In the extended cut, they show the ship leaving again, presumably to go back to Earth, and it kind of ruined it for me, because I love this idea of, they're starting this new life on this new planet, and it was kind of obvious that the fans had said, no, that's not happy enough for us. This is what we want. And to have two, huge, very, very influential and very, very talented men leave a company, at least in part because of that, I think is kind of depressing.
And it's very telling, too, of where the industry's going to cater to these generational issues. There are people, in my opinion, this is just a perception, but you're seeing more and more jaded gamers that'll just nitpick the graphics apart, nitpick the endings apart, the stories apart. Nothing is good enough. Yeah, meh, it was okay. It was all right. And I see more and more of that. When I was a younger gamer, going back to the old games back on the Commodore 64 and Super NES, you would accept the game for what it was. And some of the endings were very lackluster, but it was you just wanted to beat the game. It was a game. That's what it was. Today we're expecting so much more. We're expecting so much from these developers. You see many talented artists and people. Duke Nukem Forever comes to mind. God forbid I bring that name up. I know everyone hates the game. But I was one of the many people that played every incarnation of Duke Nukem on the PS1, on the PC. Loved them initially, and I was disappointed. I have to be honest about it. I don't think the graphics were as, up to today's standards as they should be, but the game was a solid kind of a throwback to a 90s style circle strafing game. I liked it for what it was. Some people complain, you can only have 2 weapons. I don't like it. I think political correctness as well. People aren't really into that 90s, John Rambo type attitude that we had back in the late 80s. It was a different mindset then. So it was kind of thrown upon people today, and it's unacceptable. So even Randy Pitchford acknowledged that if there will be another Duke Nukem coming, there are going to be a lot of changes with a lot of those PC issues. And maybe that's for the better. But at a certain point, when do the game developers stand up and have the moxie to say, look, we're going to make the game that we think is a great game, instead of having polls or constantly going to what the gamers want? So I certainly validate that gamers need to be catered to. They're the customer. But at the same time, we don't want to miss an opportunity to see a fantastic game because of whiny little kids that are complaining that want a game to conform to the idea of what they think a game should be. And there's other gamers that are perfectly happy with it, like you were happy with the end of Mass Effect 3. Mm-hmm. And I've heard a couple other friends of mine that liked it as well, that accepted it for what it was. It had closure for them. It could segue into something down the road. But, again, everyone complains, and now you get an issue.
Yeah. As far as Duke Nukem Forever goes, the thing I think a lot of people have to remember is that game started out as an N64 release.
Yes, sir.
It was supposed to be, 97, 98, something around there. It was ridiculous. Right. And that's not to say that releasing, a piece of garbage is okay, I guess, but you're not having a gun held to your head and say, buy this because you like Duke Nukem. It's your choice. That's the great thing about the internet, is you can have critics from all over the place with all different kinds of opinions tell you, whether or not they like the game, and a site like Metacritic, to aggregate it. But I feel like way too many people these days, and I'm not going to go on a rant about this, that's not the point of this, but kind of have this, I demand this attitude, I deserve this. You don't deserve jack shit. You bought the game, you paid your $60, and you got the game. You didn't invest in the company, you just paid for the game. And, let us know in the comments what you think about this, too, because it's interesting, but I feel like there is a point where, I feel like I think Capcom might be kind of example of where they totally need to, and they have been told by quite a few gamers. I know Angry Joe especially, you like him as well. He rips on them. This guy, Alpha Omega Sin, he makes a lot of videos where he talks about how pissed he is at Capcom, but
oh yes,
I feel like in general, that's not really the problem. So, all right, next we're going to move on to our third, or is it our third story of the day? And this is one Dean and I are both really excited for. The release of Dishonored on October 9th.
Oh, yes.
This game actually got one review already. It was leaked by accident, I think. It was from Computer and Video Games. They gave it a 9.5, which...
It's promising.
Yes, it is. And it's important to get those reviews out there, because Arcane Studios is... they've been around for a while, but they haven't made that many games on their own. They made one called Arc Fatalis, and they made, what was it, Of Might and Magic, something like that. But they haven't made that many. They made BioShock 2. They helped on. But this is kind of their first big test. Bethesda bought them a few years ago. They've been working on this game. Everything I've seen from it so far, it looks like, without getting too giddy and excited, it looks like the greatest video game ever made ever. I'm really, really excited for it. It looks like it was kind of made for me. I know we're both stealth fans, but the fact that you can kind of play this game any way you want, and it doesn't just allow that, but it caters to that, and it kind of shapes what you want around that, has me very, very excited. The thing that I kind of thought was strange, and they kind of acknowledged it, to stand out from the crowd, I don't know if you noticed this at all, kind of some of the features of characters are a little bit out of proportion. Faces especially, like necks.
Almost like Brink. Brink almost comes to mind immediately, yeah. With a kind of elongated, kind of almost a cartoon stylized art direction towards some of the character models. Which it might work. You would almost have to wait and see how the game plays out, and maybe that would be something that would enhance the game. But obviously the designers saw fit to do that for a reason. I don't know what. But
an interview, I think it was like during an IGN live stream, they said it was kind of to separate themselves from the pack, but I think I'm really digging it, actually. A reason, this is kind of a neo-Victorian style game. Yes. That's what the setting is, the kind of steampunk. And when I think Victorian England and paintings and stuff from that time period, they kind of do sometimes have that out-of-proportion style. So I think this might have been a very good decision from them. What I thought was strange, though, was the TV ad they had to appeal to that mass market, the stuff that they're trying to appeal to people. They didn't do that anymore. Especially with the opening scene, they show Corvo, your character. He's completely as photorealistic looking as they could get him. And I'm not sure really why they decided to do that for the trailer. I thought that was a kind of strange decision.
His eyes looked almost real. It was amazing how, in fact, I just watched it last night. I showed my wife that trailer on my Xbox 360. I downloaded the actual video trailer for it, and it's a fantastic visuals. It does have the same gameplay elements, but yeah, you're right. I've watched a few videos since we talked last, and you can really see that it's a little bit different from that one. Almost like I hate to say it, but almost like Dead Island they had that one intro video or one trailer, and then it's completely removed from that. Yeah. That's a much more exaggerated illustration. But
yeah, Dead Island, that was a game. It really that was deceptive, I think. Dead Island was, with how they had this melodramatic kind of slow moving. I don't think it was Gary Jules' Mad World, but it was kind of like that idea with the first trailer with the people flying through, and apparently it was a pretty good game, but it was deceptive at the same time.
It was good. It was just rife with bugs and issues, but my nephew actually, when I got done playing it, borrowed mine and spent 80 hours in it, and then the game crashed, and he lost his game save crashed.
I think there's a new Dead Island coming out too.
No, it was 85% of the way completed on it, and it just was heartbreaking to him. He refused to start the game over, so I never finished it after that. I was really kind of disheartened. But
speaking of which, we were just on the topic of Dishonored. There's an iOS game you can download for free. It's called Dishonored Rat Assassin. It's kind of like Fruit Ninja, but better. But you just talked about crashing. I told a kid on my floor about the game. We both downloaded it. We both played through it. I got to the hard level challenges. I think he was around the same point, and everything got erased. So, yeah. I'm glad it happened to that, not the actual game. But I'm very much looking forward to Dishonored. If all of the different gameplay previews are any indication, this is kind of up there for Game of the Year. With for me, right now, I think my three that I think are most likely to win are probably Dishonored, Assassin's Creed 3, and Halo 4.
Yes, I would probably completely agree with you. Not all of those are my favorite genres, but you can't argue with the popularity of those games. And what I've seen so far looks fantastic. Even Assassin's Creed, which I played the first one. I wasn't a huge fan of it.
Neither was I.
But it was a good game. I liked the concept of it. The art direction was fantastic. The freedom of falling off the buildings and a lot of the platforming elements I actually did enjoy. There was a little repetitive, trying to pickpocket people. Some elements of it that I personally had a hard time with. It maybe it's just because it's not my genre. But
no, it's not that. The first game was was okay. I actually didn't play the second one because I bought the first one, was so excited, and then was like, this is repetitive. The story's kind of boring. The combat was interesting, but it was too easy. And the one complaint, and this is the only game I have ever, and probably will ever say this about, it gave you too much freedom. The areas it gave you were so open, there were too many cities, and you got lost. So I didn't buy 2 because of that. And everyone told me, oh no, 2's so much better, and I thought, yeah.
That's a problem with freedom sometimes.
Yeah, and I didn't buy 2 when they switched to Ezio because of that. People mentioned how they said, oh, it's so much better, and I've heard that before when you talk about, Modern Warfare 2 compared to the first one. Yeah, it's better, sure. So I didn't play it. And then my friend had Brotherhood, and I decided, okay, I'll try it out. And it was awesome. And they said, it's pretty similar to 2. And then Revelations was pretty good, too. So Ubisoft, I love Ubisoft, and they really did learn from their mistakes. I think they fixed a lot from Assassin's Creed 1 to 2, and now I think they have the formula kind of down pat for a few games. It looks like, obviously, they're shaking things up with the Revolutionary War, but I'm very, very excited for that.
It looks fantastic from what I've seen. My father-in-law is 75 years old. He loves the first 2, played every completion through them, replays the games he loves. He plays Red Dead Redemption. He's in his 70s. It's so hilarious. And that's where I got stuck during a snowstorm and was stuck at home for 2 weeks with him. So we played the first Assassin's Creed for just day after day. And I rode on the coattails of his enthusiasm, but I just couldn't get past some of the repetitive issues for me. Visually, I thought it was stunning, but I had a hard time with it. You're right. The sense of over freedom in it, I'd rather prefer something a little bit more linear. Now, Wolfenstein was a game that supposedly had an open world hub, but within that they had linear sections, and it worked for me. I kind of like that. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I saw that in Wolfenstein. I thought that was kind of interesting. All right, now the second to last topic in our news segment is going to be kind of the buzz surrounding Medal of Honor Warfighter. I know you were a big fan, Dean, of the first in the reboot from Medal of Honor. I reviewed it. You can go watch that if you want to see John Urto. But I thought it was pretty good. I didn't think it was outstanding. But the sequel, I really liked off the bat. The first trailer I saw for that showed a very personal tone. The character Preacher is not in war. He's sitting on what looks like a hospital cot or something, just kind of obviously has PTSD symptoms.
Walter Reed or something, yeah.
Right, and they kind of suck him back in with what's happening. And then I saw gameplay footage that was very, very slow-paced, lots of dialogue, a lot of waiting, a lot of deliberating. And, 10 years ago, before this Call of Duty craze or whatever, you'd be saying, oh, that's boring. But now, it's no longer run-of-the-mill, so it's not enough to just be no longer run-of-the-mill. Because, there are games that are very avant-garde, and they suck. But just the fact that they're going for something different, it looks like they kind of have this style down, and they're willing to, at least from a narrative standpoint, not cater to Call of Duty, which was the mistake I think that DICE had in the single player of Battlefield 3. There were some fun moments in it, but it was so like, yes, I've done this before. I've done this so many times before, and actually,
it's a tried and proven formula that a lot of shooters said. The problem is we've been playing them so long. There's not a lot of new wrinkles on the FPS games. Now, there's another new one called Enemy Front coming out from the guys that are working on Crysis 2, and it looks fantastic. Similar to Sniper Elite V2, you're by yourself behind enemy lines with no help, and you've got to make do with the weapons you can find and infiltrate, and the graphics look fantastic. I've seen 3 segments on that, but yeah, it's more of the same. I thought Medal of Honor was fair. It wasn't a fantastic game. It had some bad screen tearing in it, really bad texture popping. But because it didn't go with the blowing the whole world up thing, I liked it. It was the fact that it was just a bunch of soldiers doing their job in a real war that we could almost identify with thrown in. I liked the mountain passes, the caves. It had some realistic elements. I guess that's what I'm going after, is a sense of realism. And then there was a camaraderie with the guys near the end of it. You really felt for the one guy that's just hanging on. And I think if they can build on that and continue the next story with a lot more human interest and less of this Michael Bay stuff, I think it could be a fantastic game. I'm really excited for it. The graphics look outstanding.
They
I'm
really do.
typically not a big tank driving thing. I mean, I know they did that in Battlefield 2, and it was fun. But I think that I think in this one it's going to be interesting. These are like a real soldier on foot, on a quad. He's in a truck going through a terrorist town trying to survive, taking care of his friends. And it looks like an interesting premise. I'm hoping it's going to be good. I've certainly paid my pre-order up months ago on it. So.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I know the producers are defending it to death because they know it's something different. I think kind of what they did, and this is smart. The first Medal of Honor game in the reboot had a very good narrative pace, but the gameplay itself was a little lackluster. For Battlefield 3, it was the opposite. It had pretty good gameplay, but the narrative was just boring. And what actually made it better, there's a book, Battlefield 3, The Russian, written by Andy McNabb. He's done some other stuff. And that actually, I'm not going to lie, that book I enjoyed much more than the single-player campaign in Battlefield 3. I read that book in like a day and a half. It was awesome. But yeah, I think this looks to be kind of combining the two. The narrative of the first Medal of Honor, the gameplay polish from the Battlefield 3 single player, which was very good,
Yes.
to create something great. What I did notice, though, I don't know if you've seen this in gameplay footage, weapons for some reason look a little bit cell shaded to me. I don't know if you've noticed this at all.
Yeah, I noticed he had one. I don't know if it was a 50 caliber. One of the last trailer. I think it was yesterday. I saw one, and it showed it up close. And there was kind of a high contrast between what was in the foreground to the more realistic Frostbite engine graphics that are in the back. So yeah,
Right.
I'd have to watch it again to look for that. But it did look like it. I wouldn't use the word cartoony, but there definitely was a different look to it than what I've seen in other Call of Duty games.
Yeah, I agree. The faces and everything else looked very, very, very realistic. The weapons looked a little bit strange. It wouldn't. I actually think, oh wow, this is kind of cool. If it wasn't that they kept saying authentic, 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 and it's not in any way or shape or form a deal breaker.
We heard that in Battlefield 3, this exact same diatribe.
I do think the game looks amazing, though. Even if it's kind of going to get lost in the shuffle, which is unfortunate because there's so many big releases this holiday season.
Oh,
and last holiday season, I thought, oh, well, this can't get any better. We had Assassin's Creed Revelations, we had Arkham City, we had Skyrim, we had Battlefield 3, we had Modern Warfare 3, we had all of these games, and then some 3DS games as well. But this, I guess it's a good problem to have. There's too many good games.
A lot of them. I've got that. I have Doom. They've got the Doom 3 BFG edition, which would take the old Doom. They used the Rage game engine and completely redid it. Supposedly, it has the best 3D graphics. I'm not really into the 3D thing, kind of like Angry Joe. Mm-hmm. But the people that have tested it in 3D say it's the best 3D game they've seen. You get Doom 1 and 2 with it. You get a lot of extra missions that were part of another PC version of the game. And then also there's a extended new stuff that they've added, which adds an extra few hours of content onto it. So, and it's all for $40, $39.99. So it's a good deal. And I think that what they're doing is they're prepping people for what could be the next Doom 4,
right.
Getting people up to speed with it, which is a good idea. So I have that one on pre-order. Killzone Trilogy. I'm very excited. I've never had a chance to play Killzone 1. I actually got the PS3 just to play the new Twisted Metal and Killzone 2, and I enjoyed that. I haven't played Killzone 3 yet, although I do have it here. Mm-hmm. So I went ahead and got that because Mark, actually, from Classic Game Room, raved about their very first Killzone. So I'm excited to play it. I know it's possibly a copy of the Xbox Halo, but from what as an artist, I love the graphic design and visuals in the Killzone. So there's that coming on. I'm a car guy, so I like the new Need for Speed. Most Wanted is exciting. Another example, they listen to the fans. I participated in the polls for the last year and a half with Need for Speed. What do you want? Everyone said, we want more Most Wanted, where they had in 2005. So they brought some of that back, and it's a perfect hybrid of that and Burnout Paradise for those that like the arcade racers. They're also, the new Forza 4 was very, very, very good. I've got all the DLC card packs for that. But now what they're doing is they're going to take it to the next step and have it open world as well, just like the Need for Speed. So you're seeing a lot of people that are kind of changing the games. They're reaching out because they know people are. I think they sense that people are tired of FPS games. They're trying to add a new wrinkle to it. They're getting sick of the same arcade racers. So you got to hand it to them. At least they're trying to do something new, bring something new to the table. I hope it works. I'm excited for all of these new games.
Right.
And certainly the new Medal of Honor for sure, this Dishonored one. Now, I'm a James Bond fan. The new Legends game looks pretty good. The graphics aren't earth-shattering, frankly, but it's a James Bond game, and I love the GoldenEye Reloaded. I thought they did a fantastic job redoing with the new game engine on that, so I'm excited for that as well. Black Ops 2, I'll have to get it. What are you going to do, not get it? It's probably going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's like the thing that's kind of Activision's business-wise, I mean, they're smart in doing it, but Halo, ever since Halo 3, a new Call of Duty game has come out the next week, and I love Halo, but it's like, why are you doing this to me? You know I love Halo. Why are you putting out another game that you know I'm going to have to buy a week later to take my attention away from it? Yeah, as far as Need for Speed goes, actually, I'm not a huge racing fan, but when I saw the demo at E3, my jaw dropped. That it looked so good. Forza, I thought it was kind of interesting. They have a plot. I think it's like you're driving to a music festival in Colorado.
Yeah, it's kind of a dubstep trance music festival. I think, frankly, it's just a destination, kind of a fun, lively destination to take your cars to, just show them off. They may have some drifting tournaments and car shows and stuff. So eventually, I think that you get to level up somewhat. You can enhance your cars, modify them, show them off, and kind of a theme of this music festival. I think it's more of a gimmick than anything. I could take or leave that because it's just unusual because it's really a racing car sim, and now they're kind of taking it to something else. So I'll give it a chance. I'm not overly critical. For what I've seen and looked at, looks pretty good. For car racing, it'll be a little arcadey, but maintain a lot of the same physics that Forza 4 had. And I thought Forza 4 really was a fantastic game. Very good realism. They capture the raw sound of the engines much better than the Gran Turismo series, and the visuals are fantastic. So I'm excited for those as well. I think they're going to be great games.
Yeah, and that's Microsoft definitely needs some good exclusives. They always go with Halo and Gears, but those games. If you like Halo, chances are you're gonna like Gears as well. Forza, for the car guys, but they really need to have all of their big three heavy hitters there doing well. And that kind of brings us to our last topic, which is one that I think Microsoft keeps wanting to think will be a heavy hitter, and that's the Fable series. Now, Peter Molyneux, I hope you never listen to this because I want to punch you in the face. I do not like you. I think he hypes games up so much. He knows that they're not going to be as good as he thinks they are. He does it over and over again. When the first Halo came out, the first Fable came out, he said asinine things about what that game was going to end up being, and it was a pretty good game. That's all it is. Same thing with the second one. The third one, a lot of people did not like it at all. And he left Lionhead. He's now working on a game. I know we're going off topic a little bit, but Peter Molyneux hatred is coming out. He's making a game right now with a company called 22 Cans, and the game is called Curiosity. I think they have to add a subtitle because NASA got mad at him for that one. But the plot of the game, or the premise of the game, is that you and a bunch of other people have pickaxes and you're hitting at a cube, and only the last person who hits the cube, and when it cracks open, they get to see what's inside. And that's it. And if you want to do better, you can get a $50,000, that's real money, pickaxe made out of diamond. I guess Notch might have a part in this or something, so that you can get a better chance at doing that. $50,000. I think only one person can buy it. And that's his idea of a great game, I guess.
I don't know. He's in his ivory tower on that one, I think. A lot of people were very disappointed. They thought he delivered probably 10% of what he promised with Fable 2, and it's very disheartening. I mean, it's one thing if a game falls a little short, but if it falls a lot short, I mean, Risen 2 is another one. People just, kill themselves over the Risen 1, especially when it was ported to the 360.
Oh,
it was
God.
just absolutely horrible. God-awful is the word that comes to mind. And the second one, the graphics do look a lot better, but it's the same boring, lackluster world, uninhabited, really. I mean, just complete inane quest to try to to level up. It's really absurd. But again, if certain people like those genre games, but if a game falls far short, then you really have to look at what's going on with the overall game development. There's a Brothers in Arms, another game. They were going to do that. The Furious 4, I think it's called.
Right, and they're they're making it into a new IP just because people were pissed about the name Brothers in Arms being attached to it.
Oh my God, I saw a trailer, 6 months ago for it. I've never seen such hatred in comments in my life.
It looked good. It looked really good
too. But again, it's almost like the Call of Juarez Cartel. The game itself, it was a lackluster game. I give it a 6.5 or a 7, but the gameplay was okay. It was done with the same engine that did the Dead Island. So some of the graphics were okay in it, a little washed out. But the problem is that they called it Call of Juarez. Mm-hmm. They should have started a whole new IP. If you want to have an urban DEA agent kind of a game, then make that. But don't call it Call of Juarez. Everyone's expecting a third installment of the Old West, and then they don't deliver. I think that's what happened with this new Brothers in Arms.
I think they're actually bringing it back, too. The Call of Juarez I'm talking about.
Yes,
like a downloadable game. Yeah. As far as Brothers in Arms, they even said, same day that they released that first trailer, we are not done talking about the old story with Baker. And people didn't care. I thought the game looked great. Apparently, it's being put kind of on hold for now, I guess, because they're working on Borderlands DLC, and then they're going to be working on Aliens, Colonial Marines. But back to what we were talking about with Fable, this may be either what kind of gets people's faith renewed in Kinect, or what makes people hate Fable. I don't think it's going to make people hate Kinect, because a lot of people already hate Kinect. But
that's true.
It's going to make it's a big deal, because a lot of people when they played it, they said it looked either boring or just broken. Apparently, it has gotten better. People are saying it's working better, but Peter Molyneux, again, he said he was looking to find, like, the solution to the controller. I don't know about you, but I've never sat with my 360 controller in my hand and thought, boy, this is holding me back.
I haven't either.
I don't know what the deal is.
I think a lot of it are basic gimmicks, and I'm all for trying new things and reaching out, trying to come up with a new concept for games or whatever, but I'm just not a big fan of the motion controllers. I have tried them. I just don't want to do a Chris Farley crash through a coffee table in the attempt of trying to see if I can gain an achievement or something. So it's not for me personally. I like to sit there and use my brain and just think and use my thumbs and fingers. That's what I'm used to. I don't want to have to flail around, but that's just me. I mean, that's just not my bag. But.
Right, and sometimes the combined, the use of all of them can make a difference. I know Uncharted Golden Abyss, people kind of look at me weird when I say this, but that game has the best shooting controls I have ever played in any game. That's a PS Vita game, and it's because you use the thumbsticks still to aim and to move, but you fine-tune the aiming by moving your system just a little bit, and especially because it's a handheld, it feels very, very natural. And another thing in that game, if you're like falling off a ledge or something and you catch, sometimes you'll still like lose your grip and you'll have to quickly swipe your hand across. The great thing about that is kind of because your hands are like this, holding the system, it makes it it kind of simulates the oh crap quick jump that you'd have to do if that was happening. So it can work, but I think mixing it into traditional controls is much more appropriate than trying to find a solution to the controller like Peter Molyneux kind of talks about. But I hope the game's good. I don't hope that any game is ever bad, and I especially as a 360, I'm not a fanboy, but as that's my main system, I think we need some good exclusives. Sony has a ton of them.
Is it asking too much, for crying out loud?
Yeah, I mean, I love Halo, but don't push it on me this much. Give me something in addition to it. Give me an action adventure game that tries something new. Give me a platformer that tries something new. Mario's the king of platformers, but look what Little Big Planet and did for Sony, or what Rayman Origins did to revitalize that series for Ubisoft. It's possible to do something like that and to be creative within a genre that's established. So I think the thing is Microsoft just needs to have a hardcore game developer besides 343, besides, you know, the deal they have with Epic to make a new series.
I think so too.
So yeah, that's the news and the info we have for today. But the second kind of feature we're doing is special for this first kind of preview episode, and this is kind of a hello, just tell you about ourselves. I'm going to start off by basically saying who I am. My name is Gabe Gurwin. I'm a journalism student at Ohio University at the Scripps School of Journalism there. Before that, I was at CGR Undertow, as you know from Classic Game Room. That's actually how Dean and I met when he was a fan of that show. And I kind of decided to do something a little bit different with this, kind of more of an opinion, kind of a long-form show. This is just going to be one of hopefully a few different ones with this show called What We Saw. I've said some of my favorite games before, but I think if I had to, my favorite series kind of put in any real order, I guess first would probably be Splinter Cell. Second would be Halo, but my favorite game of all time I think is still probably the first Halo, and third is probably the Fire Emblem games. So, you know, a nice mix there. But besides that, I'm into sports as well. Baseball is my favorite, stuff like that. And I used to be more into music, but I also just like writing kind of any chance I get. So those are kind of my favorites. Now I'm going to let Dean say a little bit too.
Well, my name is Dean Thompson. I'm a graphic designer, artist, and decorative painter. But my passion has been video games. I'm almost 50 years old, and I'll have a birthday coming up here right after Christmas. But I've been around games since the 2600. I had the C64 back in '86. I loved it. I played the original Syndicate. I played Wasteland. I played Paperboy. Lots of older games. Then later I kind of segued into the NES, then the Super NES, and I love my Star Wars and the Super NES. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those older games, which are extremely challenging, very tough games. So I grew up where, I mean, you get placed that you were just thrown into a game, no instructions quite often. They were brutally tough. If you didn't pass, you had to go all the way back to the beginning. So I've suffered under really hard games. So today a lot of the games seem fairly easy. Some of them are still challenging. But for the most part, I love my games. I'm fascinated with the interactive. To me, it's like a movie that you're interacting with, and they're getting more so that way. I'm an old school Duke Nukem and Doom fan. Played a little bit of Quake, and then later I segued into the PS1 and absolutely loved it. I played a lot of the third person, you know, Lara Croft and the Duke Nukem were actually third person on that platform, and the old Road Rash and Twisted Metal. So a lot of those games I donated to Classic Game Room that I actually had from the mid-'90s. But now I kind of segued into Wolfenstein, Return of Castle, and early 2000s. I'm a huge fan of shooters like Gabe. I certainly love the Call of Duties, including a lot of the original World War II ones, and the old Medal of Honor games as well. I'm an older guy, so I play a lot of the flight sims and World War II planes and car games and stuff as well. So we're both excited about the future of gaming. There's certainly some fantastic games coming out right now. I love my open world games as well, like GTA 4. I just recently, I'm almost completed Sleeping Dogs. It actually was a surprise.
Yeah.
And not as polished as, Grand Theft Auto 5, but there's a few things that the Grand Theft Auto 5 could probably learn from Sleeping Dogs. Some of the mechanics are quite good, actually. So I'm always looking for a new experience. I spent a lot of time in front of my TV playing video games. I'm very passionate about them, and I was thrilled to jump at the chance to help Gabe with this talk, because I love talking about games. I think it's important. We all are constantly looking daily sometimes to see what's new and what's happening. So I'm very excited to be a part of this, Gabe, and I really want to see it take off. I think it's fantastic.
And that's great. You mentioned Sleeping Dogs, a game that came out, I believe, the same day was Darksiders 2, and that kind of leads us into our last segment. And that's games we're currently playing and what we're looking forward to. Lately, I have been extremely busy. Last week was a week where I had 2 exams, but lately, besides Darksiders 2, I got a couple days after it came out, after I saw kind of surprise, really, really good reviews, and that game's it's so good. It's so much fun. It feels like it was made. It was just made by a bunch of people who said, "Let's make the game that could just be more fun than anything that's ever been made before." And is it that? No, obviously it's not the best game ever made, but it feels like that's what they were going for, and that's always a good thing. Besides that, on my 3DS, I've been playing New Super Mario Bros. 2, which is good. It's not great because it's just Super Mario Bros., but I am enjoying it.
Good.
Yeah, I am enjoying it, but it is just Super Mario Bros. What I'm most looking forward to, besides Dishonored, which comes out this Tuesday, I think Medal of Honor I'm looking forward to more than I thought I was, and I think Halo 4, because I saw that gameplay trailer and it looked so good. It looked so
Very
polished.
polished.
It was, yes, that's the word I'd use. I always kind of find something that I don't like about most gameplay trailers, like Splinter Cell Blacklist, which is coming out next year. I love that game. I liked all the gameplay trailers I've seen for it so far, and of course, but I saw, Michael Ironside's not doing the voice, and I've kind of gotten over it. But with that, I noticed that. With Call of Duty, I noticed that it still kind of looked like they were going in the more Michael Bay direction. But I liked everything I saw about what I've seen from Halo 4 so far. It looked so good, and the fact that they're going with a more mystery and exploration element, which was more present in Halo 1, which I loved, I'm really looking forward to.
Excellent. They're all going to be fantastic games. The Halo one does look good, and I'm very pumped about Medal of Honor. That's going to be a great game. Also, I'm really excited for this Aliens Colonial Marines, which will be up February 12th. They keep, every couple of weeks, there's new trailers with even more detail. The multiplayer looks fantastic, and I'm not a big multiplayer person, but everything about that, Randy's very pumped about it, Randy Pitchford, and I'm excited. I actually have the $100 collector edition of that reserved, so I'm pumped about that, even though it's a little bit of a ways off. So Gearbox is going in the right direction. Occasionally you're going to make a stinker or make a game that's not going to receive great reviews, but there are good things happening with some of these game companies, and there's unfortunately some lackluster ones, and I think Capcom is going through that right now. They're getting some very, very mixed reviews. So again, all we can do is hope for the best with gaming. It looks like it's going in the right direction, but occasionally you'll take a step back.
Right. And for sure, the thing I think about Aliens Colonial Marines, I'm looking forward to it, I guess. I want to try it out. I'm a little bit worried just because the last Alien game they had, published by Sega, wasn't all that great. I know Gearbox, though, they have my faith now after what I've seen with Borderlands 2, because that game, I had a chance to play it, Kid on My Floor had it, and it is so good. I'm kind of mad that I didn't buy it, and now I don't want to, because I know when Dishonored comes out, that's going to take up all my time, but Borderlands 2, if you have $60 to spend, people, please, and you have some time, or I guess for some of you that might be more important than the money, please play it. It's not only an extremely polished shooter, it is hilarious, the story is really well paced, and you can tell it's made by people that just love games. When you level up, it doesn't say level up, it says ding, because they know that's what people say in like World of Warcraft or whatever. When you level up, you say ding. So little touches like that, I definitely recommend checking out Borderlands 2. But yeah, this is going to be a great holiday season. I'm very much looking forward to it. I won't have as much time to play games as maybe I did beforehand, but I am definitely looking forward to it, and I think more so than last year, a lot of these games look like they're going to be piquing my interest. Some of the ones last year, Dark Souls, something about it. I know everyone loves it, and it's apparently great, but something about it just turned me off. Maybe it was just that it seemed like it took joy in the fact that you suck at it, and that it's so hard.
I think so too. Everything I've seen, I've been kind of on the fence on getting it. I like a challenging game, but I don't want to be punished unnecessarily either, doing a level 110 times. So.
Yeah, but I'm definitely looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to what indie companies have done. Recently, we've seen Microsoft got a good downloadable release called Mark of the Ninja, I believe, and that game is getting great reviews everywhere. People are saying it's a fantastic kind of stealth ninja game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting to see kind of what direction we go. And I noticed we've seen in past years, before we had the downloadable craze, you had the same medium for every type of game you had. You know, your Marios and your Zeldas and your Resident Evils and your Halos all getting put onto physical media, but then you also had your smaller games like Second Sight, which is a big one for me. That would never be on physical media today. But games like that were kind of on an even playing field. Nowadays, you get a game like I Am Alive, which I think if it had gotten more funding and been released as a physical, retail release, it would have maybe been more well received. But we're just gonna have to wait and see, I guess, to see the future. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not thrilled about some aspects of it, but it's gonna be good.
There's some good companies. I'm presently I'm 2/3 of the way through this game called Spec Ops: Align.
Right.
I passed on it when it came out. Oh God, another war film, another third-person shooter. This game has one of the best stories I have ever seen. It's the Heart of Darkness story that was the basis for Apocalypse Now, and it's got a real twist. I'm already right near the end of the last couple chapters. Very intense, like no other game. Makes you think about the consequences of war. No one wins, and I'm seeing great stories. It's from a company called Jaeger. I've never even heard of them. The graphics are fantastic. The set designs in it and what they're doing with the game is great. So I'm seeing good things with the games, and I can only hope that I see more from Jaeger in the future. I'm very impressed. I'd give that Spec Ops: Align at least a 9 out of 10. Very, very good game.
Having Nolan North as your main character doesn't hurt either.
No, it certainly doesn't. And it's got you got Bruce Boxlinger as the colonel that you're going to get, kind of like Apocalypse Now, which you have Marlon Brando.
Yeah, when that game got announced and I saw the trailer, I thought the same thing as you. And then I heard about it and they said, "Oh, it's like an Apocalypse Now," and I thought, wait, what? Because I loved that movie. I saw it. I think my junior year of high school. We were watching it in my English class. Yeah, I'm very, very excited to give that one a try. I was kind of hyping it up, but I never got a chance to actually play it when it came out. But yeah, I know the Spec Ops series was kind of a budget kind of dumpster.
Yes.
Originally.
That's why I think I passed on it.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just using the name,
which was
and they're
like, why would you do
that?
why not just call it The Line? But yeah, whatever. Hopefully you can inject some new life into the Spec Ops thing, assuming they stick with this kind of thinking man shooter as opposed to just the budget.
Many different ways you can approach a situation, and tactically, it's fantastic. Very realistic. The most realistic M4 gun sounds I've heard, and other weapons. Very well done. You have squad commands you can do. You can have moral choices to kill someone or not kill someone, to put them out of their misery. And there's 4 separate endings at the end of this game. Fantastic.
And I've heard multiple people say they had to actually turn off their system and go for a walk as they were playing it, because the ending, the choices you make actually affect you that much, which is...
I actually did a couple nights ago. I got to one level. I won't disclose it, but very disturbing, and I had to shut it off, and I kept waking up in the middle of the night thinking about the game, almost like an epic film that you've seen. I mean, I haven't been moved by a game like that, especially a war game, and these are just, aim and shoot games. This game takes it a level beyond, so I'm excited about the future. I'm seeing new things, different things. The game Syndicate, the new game, I think it's fantastic. Another game that I kind of passed on initially. Oh, God, they're going to ruin another classic game from, the early 90s, whatever. Fantastic shooter. Very violent, very well done. Fantastic choices you can make in the game. Just different ways to approach tactical situations. So I'm seeing great new games, and there's really stretching the limits of what they can come up with. So.
Yeah, so we're both very excited for this, and stay tuned, because we're planning to do this every week. We're gonna take fan feedback, try to improve the show. Make sure that if you like this, you subscribe to this channel, because we're gonna have tons of stuff just like this. Hopefully, we're gonna have different shows. Like the video, tell your friends, for God's sake, tell them. Gabe Gurwin, I'm here with Dean Thompson. You're watching GamingAngelGabriel, and this is what we saw.
It sure is. Enjoy your games, guys. We'll see you.